Visionaries was a line that launched at what many, myself included, consider to be the golden age of animation and of toys, a time that saw cartoons like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Voltron, He-Man, TMNT everywhere, with animation, toys, and comic books. Another of these, by Hasbro, the maker of G.I. Joe, was Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light. Who are they? Let's talk about them. But before we do, thank you for watching JLS Comics. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. I do upload content just like this every week. Alright, let's jump into our story. Following along with the same model as G.I. Joe, Hasbro teamed up with Sunbow for a 13-episode season, although unlike G.I. Joe, Visionaries was done without help from Marvel Productions. But speaking of Marvel, Marvel Comics published a 6th-issue miniseries that tied everything together. The comics were published via a Marvel Comics imprint geared at younger readers called Star Comics. While that was happening, Hasbro launched a line of toys and action figures that, along with Supernaturals, were some of the first figures to incorporate hologram technology into the figures. Unfortunately, the hologram tech increased the MSRP price, and kids and their parents would often go for the lower price point toys that fought for peg and shelf space at the time. It was innovative and cool, but it was also a big reason why the show didn't last long and the figure line was small in comparison to the competition, and also why the second wave was never released. The animated series was created by Flint Dill, a prolific screenwriter closely associated with the likes of G.I. Joe, Transformers, Inhumanoids, and of course, Visionaries. The 6-issue comic book series, however, was written by Jim Salicrup and Jerry Conway with art from 90s Venom and Spider-Man artist Mark Bagley, and we're going to dive into those comic book stories right now. The story takes place on a planet called Prismos. Ages ago, man roamed the planet farming and hunting and living free with fate left up to them. They had no robots, no science, no artificial intelligence. This early society gave rise to powerful wizards and sorcerers and magic users called the Mages of Prismos. It was a time when the devious, mischievous little sun imps ran wild on Prismos and who were eventually rounded up and contained, although they'd later be released by Sindar just in time for a second wave of figures that was, well, never released. But we'll get to that. So eventually, as the 3 sons of Prismos aligned, the Age of Magic ended with a great cataclysm, and only a few of these wizards survived. The end of the Age of Magic gave rise to the Age of Science, and Prismos developed into an advanced and peaceful society that spent ages developing technology and robots that became their servants in all manner of life, in advanced science and scientific knowledge, and over time, this society began to rely more and more on their robots and their technology. None more so than in the gleaming city of New Valarak, the shining jewel of Prismos culture, where, for example, robotic computer chefs scan people's nutritional needs and other robots serve dinner patrons based on those scans. High above Prismos, the planet's 3 suns aligned once again and wiped out the planet's power in science and technology. So the Age of Science was over and the second Age of Magic had begun, as it was gloriously claimed by a powerful mage named Merklin. Merklin was able to teleport the patrons of the Iron Mountain restaurant away just as it broke free from his anti-gravity moorings and tumbled down a mountain, completely destroyed now. Merklin told these people he just saved to go out and make a new world out of the old. It was like this all over the planet too. The city of Valarak self-destructed, ships fell out of the sky, communications failed, power generators shut down, and society crumbled. In the weeks that followed, the order and peace of the Age of Science was replaced with horrific barbarism, with everyone fighting for themselves to stay alive in this new era. In the rubble and ruins, a new order cobbled together pieces of the old. This new order collected dead, broken technology and forged suits of armor for themselves. They became modern-day knights and trained in hand-to-hand combat to defend their new villages from the brutality all around them. The knights formed 2 opposing factions. The good knights became the Spectral Knights, while the bad knights became the Darkling Lords. The Darkling Lords were led by Darkstorm. In the animated series, Darkstorm was voiced by Chris Latta, the same actor who lent his voice to both Cobra Commander of G.I. Joe and Starscream of Transformers. Darkstorm's forces were Recon, Sindar, Kravex, Mordred, Lexor, and a female villainess named Viralina. The Spectral Knights were led by Leoric, and he led Ektar, Cryotech, Feral, Arzon, Witterquick, and a female knight named Galadria. And even as the Spectral Knights and the Darkling Lords clashed, the wizard Merklin, who now resided in Iron Mountain, appeared before them all and said that there's a hidden chamber within Iron Mountain that contained untold magical might, and if they wished to possess power beyond their dreams, they'd all go to Iron Mountain and compete in Merklin's competition. Leoric and Darkstorm both rallied their forces to vie for the power that Merklin promised, while knights from all over the planet converged on Iron Mountain for the contest. They had to defeat rope bridges, wall spikes, ladders, transforming into snakes, a stone gargoyle, and each other as they fought their way to the hidden chamber. Viralina fought with Galadria, the 2 females, Cryotech fought with Sindar while Farrell, Ektar, and Leoric dueled with Darkstorm, Recon, and Mordred. Eventually, both factions made it to the Golden Door to the final chamber at the same time, and the wizard Mirkwood appeared to them again. They opened the door to reveal a swirling cacophony of phantasms and souls crying out in the darkness. At the end of the chamber, they finally met Mirkwood in physical form, who said he is magic incarnate. The souls they had just passed through, he tells them, were not mindless monsters. They were mystical reflections of their darkest, most secret fears, and he said that in order to conquer the swirling specters, they had to conquer themselves. And now that they'd done just that, Mirkwood said these knights were to comprise the vanguard of a new breed of warrior. Mirkwood granted each of the knights a powerful totem as a reward, a totem that they could transform into. Arzon got an eagle totem, Sindar got a gorilla totem, and Witterquick received a cheetah totem. Kravix got a violet totem, Ektar got the fox totem, while Mordred was given a beetle totem. Farrell got a wolf, Galadriel got a dolphin totem, Viralina got a shark totem, and Lexor received the totem of an armadillo. Cryotech got a bear totem, and Recon the totem of a lizard. Leader of the Spectral Knights, Leoric, got a lion totem, while the leader of the Darkling Lords received the totem of a mollusk. The wizard said that each of the animals was a magical representation of their true natures. And when they needed them, they would become those creatures and be powerful, but they would also be uncontrollable, and so that this transformation was dangerous. The knights also had staffs that Mirkwood told them to dip in the water of a magical fountain. Leoric's staff gave him the power of wisdom. Cryo's staff granted him the power of strength, Witterquick's gave him the power of light speed, Arzon's the power of knowledge, and the two without staffs, Ektar and Farrell, were the vehicle drivers. Ektar drove the Lancer cycle, Farrell drove the capture chariot. Galadriel, on the other hand, was a bit different. She could drive the vehicles, but she also got a magical shield with the power of healing. On the bad side, Darkstorm's staff had the power of decay, Cinder's the power of destruction, Kravix's staff got the power of fear, Lexor the power of invulnerability, while Viralina got for herself the power of disease. As with the good knights, those without staffs drove vehicles. Recon drove the Dagger Assault, and Mordred drove Skyclaw. And so Mirkwood the Magician sent both factions to the foot of Iron Mountain with a simple message. With the powers you now possess, you can either rebuild this wondrous world or destroy it all. The fate of Prismos is in your hands. It was a prophecy of both menace and hope, and thus ended the first issue of the miniseries. For issue 2, Jerry Conway jumped on the creative team as the scripting for Salarkrup's plots. The two factions immediately went to battle against each other, but Leoric was dismayed at this, and he wished that they could work together. So instead of fighting Darkstorm, he stood on a rocky outcropping and said, "With our powers as we've come to understand them, we can bring hope to the hopeless. We can restore justice to the land. But first, we must stop fighting amongst ourselves." So Darkstorm, not entirely wanting to agree, pulled his forces, and instead of agreeing outright, said, "We must save our strength for the coming struggle," and they left. Leoric planned for peace, though, while Darkstorm planned for war. Leoric took his knights to his stronghold amid the ruins of the once mighty city of New Valarak to train and learn their new powers. Some without staffs, though, were confused because they didn't know their powers yet, and Mirkwood didn't tell them at the mountain. The same thing was unfolding in the dark domain of Darkstorm. Recon and Mordred ventured into the slums in the shadows of Darkstorm's castle on orders from Darkstorm himself and found a blacksmith. Harkon the blacksmith unveiled the Skyclaw vehicle. When Mordred touched the triangular vehicle, his symbol transferred from his breastplate to the Skyclaw. And they realized that this was the answer, that instead of power from a staff, they'd get vehicles. And in an effort to gain more favor from Darkstorm, Mordred took his new Skyclaw and flew to attack Leoric's castle, bringing all 5 laser cannons to bear on the structure. The Spectral Knights were caught completely off guard because all the ships and technology had been grounded and destroyed and was rendered inoperative since the end of the Age of Science. So they didn't think anything was flying anymore. They quickly realized, though, it wasn't powered by electricity, it was powered by magic. They managed to hit his ship and the Skyclaw retreated, but just as that happened, the rest of the Darkling Lords attacked from the ground on horseback. And in the ensuing battle, Mordred came back and strafed the battlefield, knocking his own master, Darkstorm, off of his chariot. Whoops. Mordred crashed the Skyclaw, and so the Darkling Lords retreated, and back at the castle, Darkstorm threw Mordred into the brig for his misdeeds. Issue 3 opens up 2 months after the previous battle, with Mordred now out of jail and chasing down Harkon the blacksmith with a new vehicle, and Recon too, the Dagger Assault. Harkon had stolen a scroll, and Mordred chased him into territory under Spectral Knight protection, and so Arzon showed up in the Skyclaw to fight back. Back at Darkstorm's castle, Lexor was hitting on Viralina, while the rest of the team tried to figure out how to use the Skyclaw as an advantage over the Spectral Knights, and first, how they'd have to steal it back from Leoric's castle. Darkstorm forced Recon and Mordred to work together to get it back and to work out their bickering and make up for their failings about losing the Skyclaw and Harkon in the first place. Back at Leoric's stronghold, Harkon was resting and recovering with Cryotech and Galadriel tending to his wounds as he lay in repose, and in his delirious state kept saying, "End of magic, return of science." Leoric took Arzon out to a balcony to reflect on those words. Arzon said it would be nice to go back to the age of science to end pain and suffering and want. And Leoric replied, "I share your compassion for the people who lost their place in the world when the age of science ended. Like you, I feel frustrated by the poverty and pain the change brought. But the change also brought hope. For many, the age of magic marks a new beginning, a chance to build a new and better civilization than the one we lost. We must cling to that hope, my friend, accept what we cannot change and change what we can." They then pulled out the scroll that Harkon had stolen, and the scroll revealed the coastline. So they compared it with their cartography scrolls in the castle's map room, which they discovered aligned with an area 17 miles northeast of the castle and a mere 16 miles south of Gravestone Bay. Ominous name. At that same moment, Mordred and Recon showed up to steal the Skyclaw back, so Arzon transformed into his totem, the eagle, to give chase. The Skyclaw was too fast for Arzon the eagle and managed to get away, so the Spectral Knights were suddenly afraid that the Darkling Lords might have overheard their conversation around the scroll, so they put together a multi-pronged expedition. Leoric, Cryotech, and Arzon would head to Iron Mountain to seek the counsel of Merklin the Wizard while the rest of the team headed for Gravestone Bay. Merklin revealed to them the text of the scroll, that during the early days of the Age of Science, a group of military scientists led by Tech Colonel Ragni Faisal found a vibrating stone inside of a massive fissure that immediately killed all of their equipment. This vibrating stone ended up being a meteor with a vibrational field that affected electromagnetic reactions at a subatomic quantum level, meaning that within the meteor, scientific principles were reversed. He said that if a bomb exploded the meteor, that its dust would permeate the atmosphere and scientific principles around the world would be reversed. In other words, it was a doomsday weapon. The government commissioned Colonel Faisal himself to construct the weapon and seal it in a massive tomb, and just as it was completed, the government fell in a coup, and all records of the doomsday weapon were destroyed except for one scroll, the scroll that Harkon had stolen. The Spectral Knights met up with each other and headed to Meteor Park near Gravestone Bay. Meteor Park was surrounded by a fortification of twisted bramble and a sharp wall of thorny vines, so Farrell transformed to his totem, the fox, to sneak through the bramble and find a path through. And hidden inside the bramble, Cryotech found Faisal's capstone, the final stone that had sealed the crypt that contained that doomsday weapon. But just as they opened the tomb, the Darkling Lords attacked, and Merklin flew in with Viralina and the Skyclaw as his gunner, and they strafed the ground with laser cannon fire. In the chamber that housed the bomb, the Spectral Knights discovered the vehicles abandoned there by Faisal, and a couple of the vehicles responded to Farrell and Ektar, the two without staffs, and so this was their power, to drive the captured chariot and the Lancer cycle. Darkstorm shot his power of decay at a support beam to collapse the chamber and destroy the vehicles, but Galadriel threw herself in front of the beam to stop it, nearly killing her. Cryotech was enraged at this and launched an attack at Darkstorm, but Darkstorm sent Lexor in to defend him, and the two knights clashed, strength versus invulnerability. Arzon wanted to detonate the bomb. "Think of the pain will save the world," he said, but Leoric replied, "Pain is a part of life, Arzon. When a mother gives birth, she knows pain. Would we deny the newborn child to save the mother pain?" And so Arzon was like, "Alright, you have the power of wisdom. Makes sense. The choice to use the bomb or not is yours." So a magical fist shot and punched the Skyclaw right out of the sky, and it crashed into the support beam, collapsing the tomb and burying the bomb. Leoric then faced off with Darkstorm. It was leader versus leader. "Such power is too great for mere men to wield, Darkstorm. I would have used it to heal and you to rule, and we'd both think that we were right," Leoric said to Darkstorm. "But on such a scale of power, concepts of right and wrong no longer matter." That's pretty deep. Darkstorm left, and Leoric said to Arzon that they were wise to destroy the reversal bomb and that some weapons are too terrible to use. Issue 4 opened with Witterquick on a windswept crag overlooking a dark and fathomless canyon, driven forward by a mysterious and unknown force. It turns out it was a dream, and Sindar was having a similar one, both drawn by the magic of a witch named Sarina. They fought together first, but when they found out she was evil, Sindar and Witterquick used their combined power to defeat the witch. Issue 5 begins the quest of the 4 talismans. The wizard Merklin split the Visionaries into teams to quest after 4 items that each represented the 4 elements: fire, water, air, and earth. Galadriel and Cryotech were tasked with finding the Earth Talisman, which was guarded by a tribe who worshipped it. Kravix and Recon tricked the tribesmen into attacking Galadriel and Cryotech, which allowed them to steal the Earth Talisman, while Galadriel used her healing powers to care for the tribe. Then Arzon and Farrell found the Air Talisman, which was with the High Flyers, a group of people who made artificial wings to fly. That's when Viralina and Sindar attacked, and Viralina used her power to disease the High Flyers. So Arzon healed them, and so the High Flyers gave the Air Talisman to the Spectral Knights. So that left 2 more talismans to find, which never happened. Issue 5 and 6 were part of a 4-issue story, but the comic book was canceled, and so that latter part of the story remains untold. Speaking of cancellations, a second wave of figures was planned for 1988, which would have greatly ramped up their ranks in the line, but when Visionaries was discontinued, they never saw production. Interestingly, the line shares many connections to G.I. Joe in addition to what I mentioned earlier, like with Chris Latta and the lines sharing animation studios and episode scriptwriters, design houses, and comic book publishers. The wizard Merklin's name is not a play on Merlin the Wizard. Well, it kind of is, but they chose a Hasbro sculptor named Bill Merklin as the inspiration for Merklin's name. Bill had sculpted figures like the Baroness, Jinx, Lady J, 70 G.I. Joes in total, and even created the Bats, the battle android troopers for the G.I. Joe line. A wizard named Falcama from the 3rd episode of the cartoon, who had a dragon's eye that the wizard Merklin needed, has an interesting connection to G.I. Joe 2. His name is a portmanteau of 2 famed writers, Lee Falk, who created The Phantom, and G.I. Joe writer Larry Hama. In 2018, IDW Publishing, who now had the license for this, as well as G.I. Joe, Mask, Transformers, and a whole bunch of other Hasbro properties, crossed Visionaries over with Transformers. It turns out that Garrison Krieger from IDW's First Strike series was the human form of the wizard Merklin. Merklin, as Krieger, had spun out of G.I. Joe's Sergeant Savage when he was still General Blitz, and he worked with the dictator of Khalistan named Ironclaw and with Tomax of the Crimson Twins, as well as Baron Ironblood, to form a cabal who wanted to rid the planet of Cybertronians and destroy Cybertron itself. Merklin wanted to find an ancient talisman, the one that destroyed Prismos and collapsed the ancient planet of Antilla into a black hole and gave rise to a corrupted magic that birthed the Dire Wraiths from the realm of the Space Knight world. Merklin used the ancient talisman to rebuild Prismos as new Prismos, but he did this within Cybertron. So Leoric and his Spectral Knights teamed up with the Transformers of Cybertron to stop Merklin and the Darkling Lords. And so there you have it, the story of Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light. That's a wrap on this, my friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and you'll be one of the first to know when I upload videos just like this each and every week. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.